On January 31st, 2007, President George W. Bush paid a surprise visit to Wall Street. On the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, he was greeted like a rock star. It was, after all, this president who stood defiantly in the rubble of the Twin Towers after 9/11.
And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
5 years on, the president's ratings in the polls were at a record low. But the stock market was reaching record highs. So were Wall Street salaries, bonuses, and executive compensation. And that was a political problem for the president. He returned to ground zero to gently urge Wall Street to do the right thing. And he cited as an example one of the great stories from 9/11.
One New Yorker understood corporate responsibility, a fellow named John Duffy. John Duffy grew up in the Bronx. He became CEO of a Manhattan investment and research firm called Keefe, Bruyette and Woods. On September the 11th, KBW had its offices in the South Tower of the World Trade Center. That day, the firm lost 67 people, including John's 23-year-old son. Many thought KBW was finished, but not John Duffy.
You lost your headquarters. You lost a third of your employees. You lost your co-CEO, your son. Why didn't you give up?
You know, I think we wanted to prove it to the world, to the country, and to ourselves that, in fact, we could rebuild. And there was a sense of obligation to, thinking about the 67 people that we lost. We didn't want to have to go back to those families who just suffered the, utmost tragedy, say, besides losing your loved one and probably primary breadwinner, that, the firm had died also.
It almost did die. KBW's trading floor, its nerve center, and its executive suites were on the 89th floor of the South Tower. The second hijacked plane smashed into the building directly below KBW's offices. In the 56 minutes that the South Tower remained standing, only 14 employees from the 89th floor made it out alive. They were the ones who saw or heard the first attack on the North Tower and decided to evacuate by stairs and elevators.
The fire that I saw and the heat I felt was intense. I was frightened, and so whatever it was, I thought was serious, and I should get out.
KBW insurance analyst Cliff Gallant acted on gut instinct, but most stayed at their trading desks. The market was about to open. A lesson from the bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993 was wait for help to come. On 9/11, that would prove a fatal decision.
It was confusing and not knowing what was going on. I think if you had seen what I had seen and just rushed over afterward and saw that it was the other building, that your building was okay, I mean, there was absolutely no reason to think a second. Even if you knew that a plane had hit the first building, why would you ever think a second one was coming, right? And so it made perfect sense to me that people would decide that you were okay and you could stay.
Evacuate or stay, the stairs or the elevators, a business trip that morning, a delayed train, even rush hour traffic. Small decisions and matters of chance would determine who would live and who would die. On the trading floor of Keefe, Bruyette and Woods today, there are only a few reminders of the hell they went through. A sculpture made from a steel beam, salvaged from ground zero. A chalice from Tiffany's, engraved with the names of the KBW employees who died. A painting of the American flag, a gift from a KBW family. It's one of John Duffy's favorite tributes.
The stripes are the names of the 67 people that we lost on 9/11 in alphabetical order. And see Chris Duffy there.
Duffy's son Chris was 23. He had joined KBW to work on the equity trading desk 1 year before 9/11.
Christopher was a great kid. It makes you realize how precious life is, and and how it can be cut short.
Leave 16-6, right?
KBW employees say they've always been a tight-knit family. You can see it in the relaxed atmosphere and the smiles. You can hear it when they complete each other's sentences. 9/11 only made those bonds stronger. Vice Chairman Tom Michaud, who survived because he was running a few minutes late that day, and Senior Executive Assistant Jackie Day, who was at home recovering from an operation.
We made it an integral part of who we were and not let it hold us back or affect the new hirings or the expansion of the business. It is part of us. Everyone that joins us knows it, but it isn't all of us. All of
That's
what
right.
we are.
We're not hostage to it or captive to it by any means.
No.
I think it's become a healthy part of our soul as we move forward.
This small boutique firm, once known primarily for the quality of its research, found a new inner strength. Much like Sandler O'Neill, KBW could afford to help support the families of its dead.
For the memory of those who lost their lives on that day, we weren't going to give in to the terrorists. And also our feeling was we could do more to help the families if we had a robust and rebuilt firm.
Friends, clients, even competitors reached out to support KBW.
Temp agencies and delis and anyone that could offer their services. You know, the outpouring of care was tremendous. It was unbelievable, all the extent that people went to show that they knew who we were, who our people were.
One of the things we really learned in the months after 9/11, as we went out initially to recruit people, I'm not even talking about chasing customers, was how many people out there thought we had a wonderful brand name and a great platform.
It's the reason Frederick Cannon became one of those post-9/11 recruits. He's now the chief equity strategist at KBW.
I knew KBW from my years in finance working at banks. I knew the research analysts who didn't make it through 9/11. And I really just always appreciated the firm, their focus on financials. Most important, they're a Wall Street firm without the pretense.
John, I remember people saying KBW couldn't survive on its own. It needed to merge. It needed to be bought by a bigger firm. Why were they wrong?
I guess they underestimated us.
9/11 did begin usher a new era on Wall Street, and that led to consolidation, deals, firms got bigger, and KBW was well positioned because they were trusted, they were knowledgeable, they were experienced, and they had gone through the 9/11 experience, and they had a certain amount of goodwill.
Like Cantor and Sandler, KBW's headquarters today are located in Midtown Manhattan on much lower floors, but there is nothing diminished about KBW itself. The firm has twice as many employees as it did on 9/11, 80% hired since the terrorist attacks. They've expanded in trading and investment banking and opened offices in Europe and Asia. They became a public company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Annual revenue was $185 million in 2001. A decade later, $426 million, more than double. KBW now is a firm more willing to embrace change, more willing to take chances.
How did 9/11 change this place?
I think one of the aspects was it probably gave us a little bit more professional courage that we could do some things that maybe we hadn't done before. Some of these people.
It gave Duffy more courage as well.
I think it made me a little bit more decisive. I remind myself periodically that, you may not have as much time as you wish. So, if you need to do something today or sooner, don't procrastinate.
The challenges of the past decade have exacted a toll on Duffy's personal life. In addition to losing his son, he's now in the midst of a highly public divorce.
But quiet.
Duffy would eventually write a book about his firm's experiences and personally bankroll several businesses that have little to do with banking. He even backed a young rock group that wrote a song in KBW's honor.
Just carry on, son. Carry on,
John Duffy, Wall Street banker, became the executive producer of Random Robbery. Whether out of character or not, there is no denying the story of John Duffy and his firm is an inspiration. A story of courage and perseverance worthy of a presidential address.
It says something about John Duffy that the terrorist attacks only made him more determined to succeed. It says something about New York that there are countless stories like KBW's of hardworking men and women who picked themselves up and rebuilt bigger and better than before.
When we come back, three firms and the lessons they share.
5/8 bit.
Plus, a Wall Street like you've never seen.
Go, go!